Welcome back to the Retro Horror Academy. My name is Daniel Richardson, and today we're going to be looking at the year in horror, 1922. Over 100 years ago. Whew, man, that's crazy to think about, but here we are, 100 years later. We have 4 horror films that we're going to be ranking tonight, all silent films from this classic era. And top 3, of course, will be awarded the various Skull Awards. So let's just jump right into it. What was the number 4 horror film of 1922? One Exciting Night. The basic plot here is there's this young orphan girl who aunt is taking care of her. And anyways, there's an old douchey rich guy who wants her. Of course, she falls in love with this, guy her own age. However, the old douchey guy, he's holding something over her aunt, so he's kind of forcing her into this relationship. While all this is going on, the old douchey guy has a party, or no, I'm sorry, I think it's the young guy has a party, and during this party, it's kind of a backdrop for this group of bootleggers who are, horseback, and they're trying to basically smuggle the booze, through, and they're trying to find some kind of hidden treasure as well, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, we wind up with a dead body, and, our main character, the young guy, he is the one who's accused of this murder. So, this is, it's from America. This is an American film. It's directed by D.W. Griffith. Known for... Now, he's dabbled in horror before. He did The Sealed Room, and he did An Avenging Conscience. And it's kind of weird because the reviews I was looking at, they were all kind of like shocked, like, oh, this is his first foray into horror. And it's like, well, no. And I wouldn't even call this horror. This is definitely more drama, I guess, dark drama. So he was inspired by stage plays, Murders at the Rue Morgue, and The Bat. And this is the first film that kind of started the old dark house subgenre of horror. By the old dark house, I mean, these movies were basically big cast of characters will meet up in an old spooky house, and for different reasons. But usually there is a murder, or maybe you think there's a murder, because a lot of these were actually played for laughs. They had more comedy and mystery as opposed to horror and thriller or whatever. But it kind of started the whole cycle of those films. And so, anyways, that's kind of what this movie's kind of known for. For the time when it came out, the biggest complaint was they said that the director, Mr. Griffith, was very overindulgent with this movie. Runtime way too long, and just he had all these characters that he was trying to give everybody some storylines and try to flesh everybody out, and in the end it just kind of wound up being a mess according to the critics at the time. When I watched it, I'll just say right now, I agree with the critics. This thing, and they also mentioned this, is a bit boring. No, it's a lot boring. This thing runs over like 2 fucking hours. There's no reason for a movie to be fucking 2 hours ever, especially in 2022. But what the fuck, back in 1922? Like, who the fuck's sitting in the theater watching this thing? It's very dull. It's very boring. It picks up a little bit at times, but it's just like, I don't know, they're right. It's just like a lot of scenes kind of linger on. You can definitely cut a lot of shit out of this. For me, the big standout issue I have with this thing is the use of blackface. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act all high and mighty. Fuck it. Blackface was used. It's, clearly not appropriate today. Probably wasn't appropriate back then. But, people talk about, was it Laurence Olivier? He did it in Othello. And I think, probably not right. But it was done with respect. It was tastefully done, I guess you could say. Uh, However, this is so. It's just offensively bad because there is just. I mean, there's been rumors that D.W. Griffith, who did the film Birth of a Nation, which glorified the KKK, there's been rumors that this guy is, a bit racist. And I gotta say, after watching this movie, I gotta agree because he wrote the script, and the black people in this film are portrayed as stupid, ignorant, lazy, and goofy. Like, that's the whole thing. Is like the one guy, he shows up. He's like a butler or a. Well, there's a butler too, but this guy's like this. He's under the butler. He's just housekeeper guy, cleaning, butler assistant, if you will. And like every time something crazy, goofy happens, scary, his eyes bug out and he's just shaking around and I don't know. It's so bad. And it's just like, I don't know, the blackface, it's so bad too. Like, it doesn't even look like the guy could be black. Like, he just looks like he's a white guy painted black. Like, it's not even like, there's no shading to it almost. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you right now, the movie looks okay. I mean, D.W. Griffith definitely had an eye for detail. There's a crazy storm sequence at the end. It looked good. But again, the story itself was just. The movie currently has a 5.4 on IMDb. Not much I can say about this. It's why it's ranked last. It's just, it just is what it is. So yeah, that was one exciting night. So at number 3, and this will be the winner of the Bronze Skull Award, it goes to The Headless Horseman. The Headless Horseman, it's about the school teacher comes to the small town of Sleepy Hollow. He comes from New York to Sleepy Hollow. And right off the bat, he's very aware of the superstitions and, the folklore, the legends in this town. And so, he's very aware of this. And, of course, the biggest legend in this town is the legend of the Headless Horseman, a Revolutionary, this takes place in 1700 something. Revolutionary War veteran or soldier who lost his head during the war, and legend has it he's looking for his lost head. So that's kind of the backdrop here. And the main story though is he shows up and right off the bat is trying to hook up with this girl who's a heiress of some sort. And anyways, her current boyfriend gets a little pissed about this, and so makes an enemy. And then the fact that, the school kids hate him because, they think he's kind of a mean teacher or whatever. So the kids turn against him. And before you know it, because he kind of has a bit of a snooty attitude, I suppose, the entire town just kind of turns against him. And, they're looking for a way to, get this guy out of there. So, this film, made here in America, based on the Washington Irving novel of the same name, which I have never read, by the way. I want to make that clear. I have seen countless versions of the Headless Horseman, movies, TV shows, even saw a stage production of it, but never actually read the actual book. So honestly, if there's some things I get wrong here, I want to apologize. This film, it's known, and I'm going to butcher this name right here, it's the first panchromatic black and white feature film. Panchromatic was a different type of film they used when they filmed black and white, and you can tell difference right off the bat. Granted, now a lot of these prints we've been watching, or I've been watching, the Academy has been watching, they've been damaged prints, but there is just a big, there's a big contrast between the blacks and the whites in this film. The color of the movie, not the people, fuckers. Anyways, but no, there is this kind of, you can see this good contrast there. It looks really crisp, really clean. And apparently this became kind of like, the new thing, to do to make this movie. When this movie came out, it starred Will Rogers as Ichabod Crane. And he took the role because it's something he never really done before. He was known for comedy, did a lot of vaudeville stuff, would go on to become a political satirist. However, playing the snooty Ichabod Crane was something he's never done before, and that's what drew him to the role. Thing is, when I watched this movie, he didn't really seem that snooty. Like, he actually seemed like a decent guy. Like, I don't think they were trying to portray him as a dick. Because honestly, I felt like the entire town was pricks. Like, every one of them. Like, everybody's just a cocksucker in this town. He actually seemed like the only decent guy that I'd want to have a beer with in this entire town. Be that as it may, so when this thing came out, the critics pretty much said the same thing they said about One Exciting Night. This was just a very boring movie. Even up now, the retrospective reviews all say the same thing. It's just dull and lifeless. However, I'm going to disagree with that. I rather enjoyed The Headless Horseman. Maybe I just knew it wasn't going to be like the Tim Burton 1999 version. It does play more of like a drama. You don't get a whole lot of Headless Horseman action. You get a little snippet in the beginning, and then towards the end, you see something. But for the most part, you're not, it's basically just about, this a school teacher trying to digest. And there's a really cool sequence. And again, I'm not sure if this is in the book or not, but like the town turns against him, and they kind of set him up for witchcraft, which I thought, is kind of interesting because we got another movie coming up here in the, countdown that deals with witchcraft as well. But it was just like the whole town, and they're on tar and feather him. And like finally, a kid kind of comes to his senses and kind of bells him out and is like, I lied about, whatever. And of course, the kid gets beat right there on camera. It's fucking awesome. But no, like, dude, they were going tar and feather this guy. And then the boyfriend, the one that doesn't like him, his rival, he's like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't think I was going to go this far. And I'm like, dude, you were going to tar and feather this guy. Like, until that kid confessed, you were going to fuck him up. The only thing I didn't really care about this movie was just the ending, and it's nothing to do with it's plot. It's all plot. It's all story related. But it's like spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. I'm sorry, it's 100 years old. It's all prank. There is no Headless Horseman, and I believe that is the way it is in the book as well. I know the stage play I saw, that's how they ended it. Although every movie I've seen since then, it's always been like, nope, he's real, and he's coming after you. But no, in this one, it's a prank. It's a prank put on by the boyfriend. But like in the end, Ichabod Crane gets like chased out of town, terrified, and then the prick boyfriend gets the girl at the end, and I'm like, what the fuck? And again, maybe in the book, Ichabod's a bit of a dickhole, but in this movie, he seems like a decent guy. I don't know. But overall, I like this more than most people did. It currently has a 5% or a 5.0 rating on IMDb, so a solid 5. I'd give it a little bit higher now. I thought it was decent. Like I said, I get if you're looking for straight horror or the Headless Horseman doing crazy stuff, but you don't get any of that. What you do get is a fairly decent drama. Again, there's a romantic subplot, which I'm not normally into, but it worked in this one. And then, of course, you get the nice, clean-looking photography. However, that's not your thing, then yeah, I can see why people didn't really like this. But I thought people, and it's weird because this is actually the third iteration of the Headless Horseman, but unfortunately, this is the very first, or this is the oldest one that survived. The previous two movies, unfortunately, has been lost to the ravages of time, which that could have a lot to do with it for people back then too. Because if you've seen two of them that were decent, and then this one comes off more dull, but it is what it is. So. At number 3, the bronze skull winner is the Headless Horseman. He can use that bronze skull to put on top of his head, or where his head used to be. All right, so number 2 film of 1922, and the winner of the Silver Skull Award. Dramatic pause. I'm actually just taking a drink. The film I'm going with is Haxan. Haxan. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Haxan. I'm going to go Haxan. This is a Danish film. Well, the director is from Denmark. The financing came from Sweden. We'll get in that here in a little bit. The basic plot here, this is just like a documentary, but it's like a stylized documentary. But it basically just chronicles witchcraft from the beginning, of its inception and its pagan roots, all the way up until the modern day, which is 1922 at this point. But all the way through that, and this kind of shows you the ups and downs and kind of takes a serious approach with it. So This is a film I've always heard about, and I just never got around to watching it. And I was honestly surprised by this film because I didn't know it was going to be a documentary style. I've seen clips, I never actually seen anything, but I thought it was like a straight narrative. I thought it was a straight film. I will admit, this thing starts off very rough. So this film also is like, kind of a long movie. But it's a silent film, and I never had issues reading like the intertitles of silent films. Same as like subtitles with foreign films. Like it's not a big deal to me. The typical thing. When I try to show a friend or a relative like a really cool foreign film, and they realize the subtitles are just like, well, if I want to read, I'll buy a book. I get that same bullshit line all the time. However, when I started watching Hacks in the very beginning, it felt like I truly felt that because the first, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes, maybe even longer, all it's shown is the text and then pictures. Text and picture. And it felt like you were reading a book. And I was like, oh, fuck, this whole movie's going to be like this. What the fuck? But luckily, it doesn't last long. And once it gets into the actual dramatization, it gets much better. And it does kind of play off like a film, even though it's done, like I said, in documentary style. The director of this was Benjamin Christensen. He did Blind Justice. We covered that here at the Academy back when it came out, I believe 1912, maybe. Either way, though, this was his big movie here, and so he did that film, but he did not want to do this film in Denmark. He was afraid the censors or the studios just would not let him do the movie he wanted to do, and so he had to find outside financing, and so eventually brought him to Sweden, and that's So like I said, when you look at IMDb, it says it's a Danish and a Swedish film, but I believe it was filmed in Denmark. I think it's just the only thing Swedish about it was the money came from Sweden. So, anyways, and it should be noted this is actually was the most expensive Scandinavian film at the time, so has that distinct record as well. So. This movie, they do the documentary, they release it, and it's funny because it's the same thing that I've been noticing over and over with horror films. And I just, I'm talking even from my time, from even just before my time, all the way back to 1922, where these movies come out to just kind of a mixed review, kind of a tepid, reception. And then it's not until years later they're considered, fucking masterpieces. This thing had a hard time finding an audience, I believe, because internationally it was banned in a handful of countries, including the UK and the United States. And the funny thing is, it's not because of this depiction of torture or murder or, even the, brief glimpse of nudity in this film. No, it's because of its anti-Christian themes. The movie itself deals more with, and I didn't think that, I thought this was going to be a straight, horror film or, straight, just about the witches in general. But no, it's really realistic. It covers the fact that, like, witchcraft, whether if it was real or not or whatever, it's debatable or what, not debatable, but, whatever. But the fact that these people, they used witchcraft to basically take out their enemies, whether it's political or what have you. How people would be falsely accused, and once you was accused of witchcraft, you were fucked. That's just all there was to it. It shows, there's a scene where this, man's sick, and a doctor just diagnoses him. This guy, he's suffering from witchcraft. Someone has a hex on him, and so the women of the household end up accusing this one girl, this old beggar who shows up, and she's just trying to get some food. So they accuse her. What they don't realize, or right off the bat, they take her and they torture the shit out of her. And she's an old woman, and it's so brutal. And then what they don't expect is she confesses. Because again, it's like you have to confess. I mean, they're going to kill you either way. Either you keep going till they torture you, you confess, and they'll kill you because you're a witch, or they just torture you to death and then realize, oh yeah, well, it must not have been a witch. Thank God for that. And they go about their business. So this old woman decides, like, fuck it, yeah, everything you heard's true, I'm a witch, but those women in the house are also witches, and so the, Inquisition or whatever go down there, the church, and they just start taking them out. And when the other women stand up to try to, protect them, then it's like, well, wait a minute, why are you protecting these witches? Everybody would want to see a witch burn, and if you guys don't want to see witches die, you must also be witches. And they get captured as well. It's brutal because it just leaves behind the sick guy and a baby that they use to basically trick this woman into confessing. Because they tell her to let her go, and they're like, we'll let you go, but you just got to, shows how you did this one magic trick. And they use the baby. They're like, if you don't go, your baby's going to die or whatever. And so she confesses, and of course, as soon as she confesses, she's taken in, and they were all burned at the stake. There's another really messed up segment where, this guy is having, they're monks. They're all monks at this monastery, and this one particular monk, young monk, is having impure thoughts because God forbid, and apparently he just couldn't jerk off back then. So as he confesses his sins to another monk, he has to give him, or he has to give himself, or they give it to him. They give him lashes across the back. But then they're just like, well, clearly this can't just be you. Someone must be giving you these, impure thoughts. I feel like you have been, spellbound. There must be a witch among us. And so they just pick out a random young girl who just had contact with him, and they say she's a witch. And when the young guy tries to say, like, oh, no, she's not a witch, they said, listen, she's already been, accused. And if you try to defend her, it's going to make you look like you're a witch, too. And so it's just like, son of a bitch. So that's the basic, gist of it right there. And like I say, by the end of it, they kind of tie it into, these people were either, victims of just, lies, or they were women who, if they wouldn't sleep with, the witch hunters, if you will, then they were considered witches. Or if you were old and ugly or hag-like, they would also just be like, you're a witch. Must be. If you had any kind of mental illness or hysteria, as they say in this one, you must be a witch. And so it does hit it from a very, it was definitely more, scientific, I guess, in its, I don't know, in its conclusion than I thought it would be for a 1922 film. I'm not saying I thought they were all like barbarians back in 1922, but I'm just surprised at how well of a point they made during this film. Watching it, I gotta say, this is one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen. Like, seriously, it's a sucker punch. And I mean, I've seen other witch hunting movies. Witch Hunter General comes to mind. I know there's a couple more I'm blanking on right now. Blood on Satan's Claw, that was another one. Like I said, there's been a handful of these witchcraft type movies. The Witch, recently. And I mean, I'm a big fan. Personally myself, and not just to get on my soapbox here, but I'm not religious at all. I am an atheist, and I do love films where you see religion being used incorrectly for ill-gotten gain. You're seeing used politically or whatever, and you're seeing these people profit off of it, whether it's controlling the people by fear or what have you. And I love seeing the corruptness when it comes to religion. And this just comes, I mean, maybe it's because it is a documentary style. This just comes off so much more real for some reason. And like I said, I don't know, it's a hard watch. It really is. If they were to kind of update this, I think, make this today, keep, the violence, the torture in there, but keep the same narrative. Don't try to change up the narrative at all. Keep, pretty much word for word. I think this would be a fucked up movie. I think it trumped the old one. But no, this is honestly one of the most disturbing movies. And on a personal note, this is actually my favorite of the films. The Academy has selected, a different number one. However, this is, my personal choice. I just thought it was brilliant. Yeah, I really did. IMDb has it ranked it's rated at 7.7. And Rotten Tomatoes has it at 91%. So, goddamn. Certified fresh, baby. So yes, Haxon, I highly recommend this. In fact, I mean, I'd say of the four, this is easily my favorite. I would highly recommend this over all of them. And I know it's going to be a controversial statement. It's a hot take when we get to our number one, but hey, that's just my personal opinion. And speaking of number one, we're going to get to it right now. The number one horror film of 1922 and the winner of the Golden Skull Award. I'm going to take a quick drink. Obviously, it's Nosferatu. Vampire moves into a new town. Not only is he interested in that town, he's interested in the this girl, the wife of the guy who sold him the house. This is a German film, and this is directed by F.W. I always butcher his name, Manu. Um, so this, this movie, we just celebrated its 100th anniversary just recently. This is the very first vampire movie, and fuck off to anybody who says otherwise. I know some people want to, there's another movie called The Vampire came out, 2000 or 1910, I think, or maybe it was a book, The Vampire, but it wasn't quite like this. I know there's been other type thing. I know people always said, like, in the House of the Devil, you see the devil turn into a bat, and they're like, well, this is kind of the first. No, it's not a vampire movie. It's a fucking shapeshifter in that movie. This is a legit vampire movie. The company who founded this movie, they went ahead and their plan was to make, like, their studio was basically just going to pump out these supernatural occult films. And I was disappointed to hear, like, they only did one movie. This is it. Because, and in fact, the movie was its own undoing because they would get sued, and we'll get in that in a second. But they never did get to make the next two, or, more films after this. Which, personal disappointment to me. So for their first film, they decided to basically do an unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And anyways, they decided to change the names, which, there's been many versions. Again, the intertitle's been changed several times. So there's been many versions that, the names have been changed completely, but changed multiple times too, depending on which version you see. But they changed the names, and they changed little things here and there. And then they even tried to, change the ending. This is actually the first time. This is not canon with the book. But in this film, sunlight kills I keep on calling him Dracula, or I keep on calling him Nosferatu as well. Count Orlok is his name in this one. We'll call him Nosferatu, though. Come on, we all know who he is. Anyways, but sunlight, direct sunlight kills Nosferatu. And that was not part of the Dracula book. In the book, Dracula, he wasn't a big fan of the sun, and I believe they said it weakened vampires. But for the most part, like, they were okay to be out in it. Like, it wasn't a big deal. But here, they kind of make it different. And it's just neat how, like, that became, like, canon for just about 97% vampire movies from here on out. Pretty impressive. So anyways, when the Stoker estate found out that, these people made the movie, they were upset. They sued. I don't get copyright law. I always assumed that if it was, like, from another country, it didn't fucking matter. Like, what are they going to do, really? Because I know, like, Russia and America has always, we were able to use, like, Russian music and not to pay royalty or anything for it, and vice versa, because they did all the time. I know, like, didn't, like, Bollywood make like a time, like, isn't there like a Bollywood Friday Nightmare on Elm Street film? Same thing, like, it is, they just ripped it off, or maybe it's Filipino, I don't know, but either way, there's like a foreign Nightmare on Elm Street, and they did that a lot. Like, they just ripped off movies. So it's just I think Turkey does that too. So I don't know, it just feels weird to, like, I don't know. If you're in Germany, they're like, at least Bram Stoker, British or whatever. So it's like, fuck off. Like, seriously, fuck the fuck off. Not gonna pay you shit. But somehow the courts, ruled that, guess what? You're gonna have to destroy every copy of Nosferatu. And so every copy was thought to be destroyed. I don't know if they just did a big bonfire or what. And it wasn't until years later that someone discovered a print of Nosferatu, so they were able to restore it and get it out there. And luckily we got it today. Very influential on not just horror cinema, but cinema in general. The movie itself, I believe Roger Ebert said, like, this is the first horror film that actually tries to scare you. There's been scary horror films before. There's been, films that, would be classified as horror, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and what have you. But this is the first one where it seems like, yeah, the goal is not just to tell you a story. The goal is to actually scare you. And a lot of that, credited to Max Schreck and his makeup. Now, there's some, controversy there. That I read, but I'll tell you right now, I don't fully buy into it. So, like I said, F.W. Manu directed this, and Max Schreck, was the vampire, and the way they portrayed this vampire, he very, his face is very rat-like. It's a very rat-like vampire. It's the temple they've used, for the remake later on, and then, Salem's Lot, they used that, type of vampire in it as well. However, it's been said that, at the time, in Germany, the Jewish people would be portrayed, stereotypically, in comics, cartoons, different advertising, with these rat-like features, and with the long nose and the elongated fingers and all this stuff. And so it's been said that this movie comes off very anti-Semitic because of that. And then also the fact that vampirism is meant to be like it's a plague. It's the death. It's sweeping the town, and people are saying it's just what the Germans said would happen if the Jews came into their towns, that it would spread like a plague or whatever. The only reason and once again, it's hard to argue the connection. Clearly, if he looks like that, fine. Maybe Max Schreck intended that. I just don't see F.W. Manu doing that, because he was a known homosexual, like he was gay back in 1922 Germany. So it's like he, of all people, would know what it'd be like to be persecuted. So I just can't imagine that he would consciously put in any kind of anti-Semitic themes into this movie, because I just feel like he would know what it's like to be persecuted. Why would he continue that? And I just don't think he would. Now again, Max Schreck maybe, and like I said, maybe the makeup was intended, but again, I just don't. It don't come off as racist as One Exciting Night. It just doesn't. But that's just my thoughts right there. It's just my opinion. Personally, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have never been too big on Nosferatu, at least from a movie standpoint. I applaud it for its technical achievements. I applaud it for the legacy it left behind, and for the road it paved. Truth be told, when I was younger, and I'm talking like when I was junior high school even, like I always wanted to see this film. I knew of it, never saw it myself. When I started getting into silent movies, and I remember we actually had a Sam Goodies. I don't know if anybody from the early 2000s remember Sam's Goodies or not, but we had a Sam Goodies in our town, and basically it was just like, it was like Best Buy or, but it's all music and movies, like electronics and stuff, band stuff, And so anyways, it's like a Tower Records is basically what it was. So I'm in there, and this is, I'm probably in my early 20s at this point, and so I'm just, stacking. I'd go there all the time and buy DVDs, and they were kind of pricey or whatnot, but every now and then you find some really good deals. And I remember I found a 2-pack. It was Nosferatu and Phantom of the Opera, and I had really no desire to watch Phantom of the Opera, so I just kind of but I was like, I want to see Nosferatu, because again, I remember when I was a kid, there was a episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark where they're watching. I don't know if it's supposed to be Nosferatu or not, but it's a Nosferatu type movie. But the vampire comes out of the movie screen, and it's a great episode. And once again, I've seen clips, off and on throughout my. So I knew the character, I knew the what he looked like. I loved and I just never seen it. So when I finally watched it, to my chagrin, it was literally just Dracula. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that this was a ripoff of Dracula. I didn't do no research. I was fucking 20 years old. Google's kind of new, guys. So anyways, but no, I had no idea about this. So when I watched it, I was just flat out bored, because at that point I have seen so many versions of Dracula that it's just like I knew the story frontwards, backwards. I knew it by heart, I knew it beat by beat. I've seen so many, Dracula Dead and Loving It, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, the Hammer Dracula, the TV show that did it covered it, you've seen it so many times. And so I honestly was just kind of like, And I believe I saw the Universal Dracula before I watched this too, so it's just like, I know the goddamn story at this point. And so when I watched Nosferatu, honestly, I was just bored, vastly bored. Now, as years would go by, I'd go back and revisit it. Honestly, I still find it kind of a boring watch, but again, I can just appreciate what went into the film, the story behind it, and honestly, the legacy it led. It would actually go on. It would be our second release in the public domain Dungeon series here at TPS, and my partner Simon Terrell, he made the music, or I call it soundscape. It's not really a music. It's no melody. It's more of a soundscape, a nightmarish soundscape. But he did, he made that for the Nosferatu when we released it. So like I said, respect it, and again, the Academy decided to go that direction, and I get it. It's it's against the Golden Skull, and I'm not going to oppose it. I'm just saying, personally, Haxon's the better film, in my opinion. So that's it, guys. So for a quick recap, One Exciting Night, number 4. At number 3, winning the Bronze Skull, we had the Headless Horseman. At number 2, winning the Silver Skull, we had Haxon. And at number 1, Golden Skull winner, Nosferatu. So guys, that does it for this edition of the Retro Horror Academy. My name's been Daniel Richardson, and you're dismissed.